This is not a point about plot, nor is it a point about writing, but it is still about why Starcraft 1 has a better and more enjoyable story than Starcraft 2. This is a point about the drastic differences in how the conversations are carried out in the two different games, and how I think that the way that they are done in Starcraft 1 is just better. In Starcraft 1, nearly every single conversation is carried out in a group conversation during the mission briefings, with a small amount of banter during the missions themselves. In Starcraft 2, most of the conversations are one-on-one between the hero of the campaign, either James Raynor or Sarah Kerrigan, and a side character. There are very few times where multiple side characters interact with each other, and even fewer that actually develop those characters. This is something that I noticed when I was replaying the Heart of the Swarm campaign when I came across the Zagara and Dahaka argument. It was something that I found surprisingly refreshing. It made the characters feel more real than they had before. It made them interesting in a way that almost none of the previous conversations in Heart of the Swarm or Wings of Liberty did to any other character. The actual argument between the two of them was pretty meaningless, but it really made their characters click. It reminded me quite a bit of how Starcraft 1 developed its characters. What it comes down to with Starcraft 1 and how its conversations went, overall, the side characters felt more important and more believable. This made the conversations overall more dynamic and more interesting. The characters developed in a more natural and fluid way, a believable way. I'd say it's just easier to invest emotionally in the Starcraft 1 characters just because of how they talk to each other, whereas the Starcraft 2 characters tend to come off as a bit more static and uninteresting. Perhaps the greatest example of this, and perhaps the greatest example of the lost potential in Starcraft 2's storytelling, can be found in the Hyperion's lab, where you have the two mad scientists, Stetman and Hansen, in the same room with a lot of the same background science-y things. At no point in the entire campaign do these characters talk to each other, despite that they could both easily contribute to the conversation with the lab things, the artifact, the adjutant, the Protoss relic that Zeratul gives Raynor. Of course, this is mostly a problem because Stetman just doesn't have any lines at all, but still, it's not even remotely believable to have those two characters never interact with each other when they share the same space and have such similar skill sets. They are apparently both experts in Zerg and Protoss stuff, yet they never build off of each other, they never comment on each other's work, they never fact-check each other, they don't have any sort of rivalry or camaraderie. That sort of thing just makes them look and feel incredibly flat. You can't really invest into them as characters, like you could the characters in Starcraft 1. And for the most part, the Stetman and Hansen sort of way of doing things, of side characters not interacting at all, that is the vast majority of what Starcraft 2 characters do. There's a scant number of times where they interact with each other directly. Usually, even when you have three characters, the main character and then two side characters, it's just the third side character chimes in and says, hey, here's some tech for the mission, and doesn't actually talk to the other side character at all. And that, I just feel, sort of ruins the suspension of disbelief. So I guess the point of this video and this discussion is just that I'd like to see more things like the Zagara and Dahaka argument, where the characters do something that's not really important, but it makes them far more believable and interesting, because they are interacting on a level that they didn't before. Even things like glancing to the Protoss that was captured on the Zerg Leviathan, when she is mentioned in conversation, adds quite a bit to how the characters come off. But overall, having static and boring characters that don't interact with each other is not really the best way to tell the story. The rest of this video will just be a few of my favorite conversations from Starcraft 1 and Starcraft 2. Hopefully this can promote some discussion and maybe some improvements to the storytelling in Starcraft 2, Legacy of the Void. Have a nice day, and thank you for listening.
Cerebrit, our scouts have just identified 3 separate fleets approaching this platform. With Duran having disappeared, and the bulk of my broods still on the surface of Char, you'll need to hold off the invaders by yourself.
You sound worried, Kerrigan. Have I caught you at a bad time?
Not at all, Arcturus. How'd you manage to scrape up your new fleet? Been raiding the salvage dumps again?
I called in a few favors, made a few concessions. You'd be surprised to see how many special interest groups in this sector want to see you dead.
I'm sorry to have to disappoint your new friends, Arcturus. But you really shouldn't have attempted this stunt. It'll take more than your 3 little fleets to bring me down.
3 fleets?
Don't play dumb, Arcturus. I've already spotted the other 2 fleets.
Kerrigan, this is Artanis. My brethren and I have come to avenge the deaths of Phoenix, the Matriarch, and all of the other Protoss who fell before the Swarm. It is long past time you paid for your crimes against our people.
When it rains, it pours.
The Protoss, too. Care to take a guess as to who the 3rd fleet is?
No need to guess. It's Dugall and the remainder of the UED fleet.
That is correct, Kerrigan. This is Admiral Dugall. I am giving you one last chance to surrender your forces and submit to the sovereign authority of the United Earth Directorate.
Gee, that's a tough one, Admiral. You'll have to let me think for a minute. You know, Admiral, I think I'll just massacre your remaining troops now and watch you die in agony. How would that be?
You vastly underestimate me, my dear.
I don't think so, Admiral. You see, at this point, I'm pretty much the queen bitch of the universe. And not all of your little soldiers or spaceships will stand in my way again.
So be it.
In Taro Adun, Executor. My gratitude to you for having secured my release knows no bounds. By all the gods, we may win yet. The time has come to let loose the fury of the Dark Templar. Zeratul, perhaps the time has come to tell our friends of the foe we face.
Indeed. When I slew the Cerebrit on Char, I touched briefly with the essence of the Overmind. In that instant, my mind was filled with its thoughts. And I tell you now, our worst fears have come true. The Zerg were indeed created by the ancient Selnaga, the same beings that empowered us in our infancy. But the Overmind grew beyond their constraints, and has at last come to finish the experiments they began so long ago.
So you see, my friends, we fight not only to save Ire, but all creation. If we fall to the Zerg, then the Overmind will run rampant throughout the stars, consuming all sentience, all life. It is up to us to put an end to this madness, once and for all.
Our forces shall engage the primary Zerg hive clusters in an attempt to weaken their defenses. Once their numbers have thinned out, Zeratul and his companions can infiltrate the clusters and assassinate the Cerebrits. Adun willing, the Cerebrits' deaths will distract the Overmind long enough for us to assault it directly. It is difficult to believe that I am working alongside my greatest enemy in order to save this sector. Fortune has been whimsical of late.
You sound like a tired old man, Phoenix.
Don't let the fact that I am 368 years older than you dull your impression of me, young raider. I can still, how do you dare and say it, throw down with the best of them.
I stand corrected.
50 years and no one's ever escaped from New Folsom. But we broke it open in an afternoon. I can hardly believe we pulled it off.
You guys did good. Now me and my Spectres will finish the job.
We'll kill Minsk and burn his dominion to the ground.
Overthrowing Minsk is just the start. This is about building a better tomorrow. Don't you see? We just released every scientist, philosopher, and free thinker that ever challenged Minsk's rule. That was our real victory today.
You really that naive? Tomorrow there'll be a new Minsk, and another one after that. Your great shining dream of the future is just an illusion.
So if it's all so bleak, why are you here, Tosh? What do you get out of all this?
Same thing as you, brother. I don't quit till Minsk is dead.
Vengeance doesn't factor into this. Our revolution's about freedom.
You'll see that better future, Matt. But it ain't for the likes of us.
We found him.
Where?
He's being held on the Moros, a mobile prison ship that jumps every hour to a randomized set of coordinates. There's no way to predict where it will jump next.
They've got to resupply sometime.
Exactly. We know the ship will be at the Atlas station for 32 minutes tomorrow.
Atlas will send a tanker out to the Moros, but when the fueling's done, it's gone. Our associate Tosh volunteered to infiltrate.
No, you've done your part. I'll handle this myself.
Be careful, Kerrigan. This place makes New Folsom look like a nursery.
There will be no essence here. I cannot collect if there is none.
We are here because our queen orders it. Do not dare question.
I follow for essence.
You must learn obedience, Primal.
Yes, come to me. I will collect your essence now.
Enough! Zagara, do not speak for me. Tahaka, do not collect from my swarm.